Hi, everyone. My name is Max Goodman. I am the co-founder and co-president of the MCW International Medical Student Pen and Pal Club. Welcome. Before we get into the orientation, which afterwards will allow you to be paired with one of our awesome international medical students, I'd just like to let you all know that our recording of the first half of orientation was lost. So I'll be going over that part. For students who missed the meeting, you'll see a QR code at the end of the video. That QR code will register you to be paired with a pen pal. However, we did take attendance at the actual meeting. So those of you who missed the meeting will also need to email us at penpalclub@mcw.edu a paragraph about what you learned from our orientation regarding cultural competency or how different medical school systems work and how you will apply what you learned when communicating with your pen pal. The paragraph should take less than 10 minutes to write. It's not a big deal. Just do your best. Okay, on to the orientation. Okay, so here we are at the beginning of the orientation video. So here are our objectives. We'll be going over the introduction and what is the MCW Pen Pal Club, and then afterwards we'll transition to the actual recording of the video. So who are we? Again, my name is Max Goodman. I'm the co-founder and co-president of the Pen Pal Club. I'm from Miami, Florida, though I went across the country a few miles to the University of California, Los Angeles. And during college, I spent 3 months in England studying physics at Sussex University. And then I spent 6 months volunteering at a hospital in Madrid, Spain, and also taking some Spanish classes to earn my minor in Spanish. And then after that, for 3 months, I was the lead of a research project at Kyoto University. So I had a lot of experiences abroad during college. I was hired to be an English teacher and a teacher in global health in Japan when I graduated, but that was canceled due to COVID. So I went to med school instead. My hobbies include learning Japanese, Norwegian, vinyl collecting, music reviewing, exercise, watching baseball and sumo, and talking with my pen pal, which leads me to how this club started. So I have a pen pal who is a medical student at Saitama Medical University in Japan. Her name is Ayami, and she is just a gem. We communicated just as I graduated from college, and I kept my relationship with her through medical school now until now. And she's just been a really great resource, not only to learn Japanese and Japanese culture, but also in exchange for our medical education. So we've studied together. We've exchanged notes. She's been a really, really important part of my medical experience, and she's what inspired me to start this club. And I hope you'll be able to have a similar experience with your pen pal. Jen's not here right now, but I can speak on behalf of Jen that she is also a second-year medical student. She's from the Bay Area, and she also graduated from UCLA. Go Bruins! Her family is from Russia, so she speaks Russian. And she worked in a rehabilitation center in Israel, and she's traveled to many, many places. Her hobbies include playing chess. I will say I beat her once. Backpacking. She does a lot of board game nights, Quidditch, and traveling pre-COVID, of course. Ji-won is also one of our officers. She grew up in Korea and immigrated to the US in 2008, I believe, during high school. And she was in the Bay Area in California and graduated from UC Davis. And afterwards, she went to work at the NIH in Maryland for 2 years. And her hobbies included going on spontaneous adventures, trying new foods, and talking to friends and family. And it's true. She recommended me a ton of spontaneous adventures just recently. So what is the Pen Pal Club? We're a medical school pen pal organization. We are, as far as we understand, the first in the country. So this is a very unique opportunity to MCW students. We will match members with another student who's completed their medical education at a medical school somewhere around the world. We have pen pals that are waiting for you all from basically every continent except for Antarctica. We hope to match you with a pen pal with similar interests who will become a lifelong friend and colleague. This is meant to serve as a very low commitment activity, but it's an exciting and, again, unique experience to make our global community tighter and more connected. The goals for this are to create international networks, engage in the sharing of cultures, learn from others irrespective of borders or distance, and to make lifelong international friendships. This is somebody who could be not only a support system for you in regards to your medical education, but also as just a friend who's just happens to live a little far away from you. So here we are at the expectations of members. I believe this is where Jiwon takes it from here during the actual meeting, and she'll be discussing how you should communicate with your pen pal. So stay tuned.
At least once a month. Yeah, and so we, being in medical schools. Being in medical schools in the US, we have a lot of privilege being able to access all the media platforms. But we recognize that some of our pen pals abroad might not have the full access. So we hope that you can, ask your pen pal first what is their preference in terms of communications. So you can or email or mails, stuff like that. But we hope that you can ask your pen pal first what is their preference. And then we will be sending out our members a monthly topic or questions. So that is something that you can talk to your pen pals about. So for this month, we have chosen a topic of COVID-19. So for instance, does your pen pal's country have like a providing vaccine? Is there vaccine hesitancy, and how does that affect their medical education? And we will be holding a quarterly meeting, and that is a place where you can bring all your questions, concerns, and feedback. And also, there will be a place where you can share your experience with your pen pal. And then we'll also be sending out a survey to gauge your progress and get your feedback throughout the year. And then we hope that you can be mindful of your pen pal's culture and differences. We all come from different upbringings and different backgrounds, and we all have differences. So just keep that in mind when you're communicating with pen pals, and because they might have like language barriers, culture barriers. And mostly the whole point about this club is we want you to have fun. This is like a really unique opportunity for y'all to get to know different, your pen pals' country, cultures, and how does that their medical education is different from ours. So that there's a really great opportunity for you all to, connect and have fun.
I should also mention that all the pen pals speak English. So as kind of G1 left off, there might be some little cultural barriers that might be in place when you're speaking with your pen pal. And we think it's important that we kind of recognize some of our differences, but also our similarities. So one amazing part of the aspect of this club is it really requires you to introspect and realize how your upbringing and your culture and the people around you influence you and shape you. So I just have some definitions here regarding cultural competency and culture in itself. So culture, again, is learned traditions, principles, and guides of behavior that are shared among members of a particular group. So we can see on the picture on the right that when we kind of think of culture, we might think superficially of just like things like language or music or cooking, but it gets really deeper than that. Actually, do you want, Jennifer, it's, the iceberg. So it can revolve around things like decision-making or relationships. Eye contact can vary across cultures significantly. Work ethic, relationships, again. There are so many little aspects of who we are that are shaped partially by our culture. So just like when you're speaking with your pen pal, just kind of introspect about that. And cultural competency is really important in medicine. I guarantee you 100% you will have a patient in your medical school experience that is not from here or has only been here for a very short time. So it's really important that you're able to ascertain what cultural competency is. So not only you can speak to your pen pal, but also help your future patients. So cultural competency is defined as integrating knowledge about individuals in their group into one's own practices and attitudes. So within that definition, there's a whole bunch of other definitions. It's on the next slide, Jen. Thank you. So there are some aspects of cultural competency that are not so good and aspects that are good. The first one is cultural destructiveness. So it's about seeing the differences and then disparaging it. You obviously don't want to do that. And you might think that's a very crude way of thinking about like communication, but it might be subtle. So again, when it comes to speaking with your pen pal, really take a second before you send that message. It might not be conveyed differently. Like phrases, for example, phrases vary incredibly across languages and cultures. So just be mindful of that. There's also cultural incapacity, which is when you see something about another culture, you're declaring it to be wrong. just realize that there are aspects of our culture that might be different from ours or to others, and that's okay. Everybody has a different culture, a different history as to how we got here, and that doesn't necessarily make them wrong. Cultural blindness would be seeing the differences and then acting as if you don't, so ignoring it. I think this comes into play in terms of like religion or sexuality, sex in general. There are different aspects of how culture shapes these things, and attempting to ignore it can be destructive. And then there's cultural precompetence. So it's just responding inadequately to it. And I think that's the big portion of cultural competency we're all looking like to improve. No one's perfect. But just so you acknowledge that you're not perfect, and this is a place and an environment to learn and grow and improve, can go a very long way. So then that goes into competence, is when you're seeing the differences, you understand the differences, and interacting with those differences in ways that recognize and value those differences. And then there's hopefully the peak, which is cultural proficiency, which is where you're seeing the differences and you're responding to them respectfully among a variety of other cultural groups. So next slide. Oh, one before that. Yes, thank you. So based on those definitions, there's a couple of questions I have for you and a couple of statements. Ask yourself, how has your culture and your heritage affected your values and assumptions? How has oppression, power, and barriers impacted your culture and heritage? And how does your culture impact your verbal and non-verbal communications in space? So I think just by looking at those questions, we can see it should be obvious that there are some differences amongst cultures in this way. So being able to reflect on those things can go a long way. And learn to identify cultural differences and gain respect and value for those differences. So that goes back to cultural competency. Communicate with individuals and groups different from you and gain multiple viewpoints. That's very, very important in medicine. And be open to change, self-examination, and not knowing everything. I think that's just a part of being a good human being. And from there, hopefully you can become a challenger to oppression and serve as an ally to the oppressed. You can become a person committed to justice and social change, because we definitely need that in medicine. An effective communicator and builder of relationships. So with that said, there's absolutely no harassment or bullying. It won't be tolerated. You will have our contact information, and your pen pals will have our contact information too. We don't want to hear anything about bullying or harassment. It's just the reality of this program is that we have to take that seriously. And if we do hear about it, we'll have to investigate it. Jen, I think you're muted.
Yep, I'm muted. So just some takeaways. Things that we hope that you'll get out of this experience is, we touched about this a little bit, but just to delve into it a little bit deeper, cultural exposure and growth. So we really hope that you'll be able to share stories, experiences, maybe some delicious food recipes, holiday traditions, and so much more. So this doesn't just have to be with the scope of medicine. We're really, that's kind of like what's starting this out, but we really hope that you guys will kind of get to know a lot more about your pen pal and vice versa. We are hoping that this will enhance your medical education by learning from your pen pal's experience and sharing your own with them. So we just listed like a couple of things that you can chat about, but we'll be sending you guys, those monthly emails with some additional ideas. And then really having a support system. And this is something we've been touching on a lot because, in this COVID world, it can be sort of tough to connect with people. And so we're really hoping that you'll be able to have a support system. And sometimes it can be easy to forget that there's other people around the world that are going through something similar as you are. So yeah, these are kind of some big things that we hope you'll be able to take away from this program or club.
Can I just add, this literally just happened today. My pen pal has a rat infestation in their house. So she was like super stressed about that because she has exams just like you and I. I think they're doing renal right now. So she was super stressed about that. And she's trying to talk to her parents about that, who are not doctors. And they understood like rats are a problem, but they didn't really understand how like the added stress on the upcoming exam is like. So I was able to relay that with her, which is, I think, very emotionally supportive. The support network can go both ways. She's definitely helped me when I was stressed, and I'll help her when she's stressed. So carry on. This is important because this actually happened when we initially matched, my pen pal and I. So I didn't realize, I'll be straight up honest. Like I didn't know there were other degrees besides like MD and DO around the world. So when she told me she was, I think she's an MB, and I was like, "You're an MB? I'm an MD. Like, are we actually pen pals? Like, are we actually med student pen pals? Like, or was there like a language barrier?" And it like took me some like research to learn that no, we're both like we're both going to be doctors, just degrees are different. And the way you get to those degrees are different across the world too. So if you go to the next slide. So there are like 6 different pathways that can go towards becoming a doctor. It's really hard to see, but for example, like obviously we go through high school and then college, and then from there we go to med school. And then some people, they go to graduate school and then med school, or they work for a very long time. That may differ to your pen pals. They'll probably go from high school straight to med school. Some of them, if they're in certain countries, I think like Israel, for example, you have to go to the military for a few years and then you go to medical school. So these are just 6 different pathways that can go towards getting that degree. And it's kind of hard to see here, but like at the bottom, or in the previous slide, Jen, at the bottom, it shows like a bunch of countries, like 70% of those countries are potential pen pals you might have. So, okay, next slide. And then also the amount of years it takes to become a doctor is like significantly different. So we go through 4 years in med school, and then if you do like internal medicine, it might be 2 or 3 years plus like a fellowship. In other countries, it might be 6 years for med school, or it might be 8 years. And then residency might only be 2 years, even for something like brain surgery. So it varies significantly. And then sometimes fellowships are a thing and sometimes they're not a thing. So it might be a little confusing if you ask like your pen pal, like, oh, how are fellowships like in your country? They might be like, what is that? Because that's not a thing here. And then it goes back to the degrees. So here's a list of all the different degrees. So there's MBBS, MBBCH, there's like a whole bunch. So if your pen pal happens to say like, I'm pursuing one of these, don't be weirded out. It's basically the same thing we're doing. So tips and tricks.
Okay, so just a little tips and tricks that we have for you guys. Is the first one is to set goals. Basically set expectations for yourself and like what you want to take away from this pen pal, and also like be mindful of your language, right? Like your pen pal probably don't have like English as their primary language, so just be mindful of that. And then in the beginning, try to gauge where they are in terms of their English proficiency and go from there. So if your pen pal is struggling a little bit about English, then maybe use like less difficult words. And they might have like spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes. And just being mindful like when you are communicating with a pen pal. And also, we recognize that you are probably really busy with your schedule, and your pen pal also is probably really busy with their schedule. So maybe like communicate in advance, like your schedule, your exam coming up, your big commitment, and try to communicate when's the best time for you all to communicate. We also encourage you all to have conversation in a different ways, and not just like texting or emailing, but also send like photos, videos of your daily life. Also, you can exchange recommendations about the movie, music, things like that. Just kind of what makes us like humans, aside from like being a medical student. Next slide. Also, try not to make any assumptions about your pen pal. I think really shortcut for us to get to a point, and like try to like take a step back and think about like am I making any assumptions, and if you are, then I would ask questions and get clarifications that way, and I think they would appreciate that more. And also be inquisitive and ask questions. There are so many more topics to talk about with your pen pal other than medical educations, like favorite activities, sports, TV programs, music, talents, and also about their family, religion, tradition, stuff like that. There's so many more like fun topics to talk about. And then another thing we recommend you all is to keep up with the current news of your pen pals country, like holidays, elections, either small or big things. I think they will really appreciate that you are actually taking an interest in that, and then you are actively asking questions about that. Also, like whatever you're learning in medical school, like, for example, as like M2, we are learning about the CV block, ask whether they are learning that right now, or like have they learned it before, or what is their education curriculum look like right now. And then you can talk about that too. And then another thing is like, language is fun, right? Like, that you can like each other like learn about each other's language, and you can like teach them like English and stuff like that. And there are also another like platform like YouTube that you can easily learn like basic language of your pen pals.
Yeah, just the big thing here is just be yourself, and it'll be great. So last kind of thing that we wanted to touch on in this meeting, sorry about the dogs, is just that we are going to be looking for leadership. So this club is brand new. We're the first officers. We started this club sort of in the middle of last year. So if you are interested in leadership, let us know. This kind of goes through the roles that we're going to kind of expand from what we had this year. We're hoping to have 2 co-presidents, a treasurer, secretary, an event coordinator, and a technology chair. I've written out kind of all the explanations here, and we can tell you much, much more, if you are interested. The general kind of team responsibilities would be to attend meetings and help with the matching of the pen pals. And then there would just be individual responsibilities that are listed here. So if you have any interest in all about running this club in the future, let us know. You can just shoot us an email at our email, Pen Pal Club, for more info. And that's it. Are there any questions out there? You can always email us later if you're not sure yet, but yeah, I'll pause for a second. You can throw it in the chat too. Okay. Not hearing any.
Hey, it's me again. Just remember, for students that missed the meeting, you're required to not only do the QR code stuff, but you're also required to email us at penpalclub@mcw.edu, a paragraph about what you learned from our orientation regarding cultural competency, or how different medical school systems work, and how you apply what you learned when communicating with your future pen pal. All right, great, thanks.
The last kind of thing is to essentially fill out the original survey. So if you just scan this QR code, it'll take you to the survey that you can fill out that will essentially just ask you some of your interests, some of your background, so that we can match you with a really good pen pal that'll be someone that'll be a really good fit. And we do really read these and use these. So if you can just spend a couple of minutes to actually fill it out, that will start the whole process. And then we will contact you once we're able to match you with someone. The one thing just to mention is since this is a new club, we are communicating with new medical schools every month, like just all the time. So we're still figuring out all the pen pals and getting more of them. So if you don't hear back right away, be patient for a little bit, and then you can reach out to us and we'll let you know where we are along in the process and getting more international pen pals for you guys.
Yeah, this is the survey so you can get matched with the pen pal. So it's definitely necessary to complete it.
Mm-hmm. Any questions at all? This is pretty short. We don't have that much more to say. But if you guys have any questions, you can always email us, and please fill out the survey. After this meeting, we're just going to send this out in case you're not able to get that Qualtrics right now, and then you'll have access to all of these slides.
What does the timeline, I don't know if this will work. What does the timeline look to be matched? Like how long does it usually take?
So it's kind of hard to say because, again, it started last year. So last year, like Jen was saying, like we were contacting medical schools up the wazoo. And we were trying to be as close to what our MCW students like wanted as much as possible. So like there's students that wanted a pen pal from like Russia or Japan and things like that. So depending on just the openness that we found from other medical schools, like that's how long it would take. So we were able to quickly get Japanese medical pen pals and Korean pen pals. But then there's a large population of MCW students that wanted a Spanish-speaking pen pal. So that took quite a long time until we found a university in Peru, which was very open to us, but that took a little while. So it really depends on the sort of region you're interested in.
So I guess if we have any global peers that we personally know of in medical schools abroad, could we reach out to them, see if we can do some sort of collaboration with them, help expand that network?
That would be more than awesome.
We would love that. One more thing I guess to just mention is how we've said we're a very brand new club. We're still sort of trying to figure things out. So if there's anything any feedback that you have, anything that you think would be a good addition to our club, you've been with your pen pal for a couple of weeks, months, whatever, and you've got some feedback, we're super open to that. We want to make this, as great as it can be for you guys. Okay. Well, that's all that we have for you. So thank you so much for joining. If you just wait 1 second, I just want to take attendance super quickly so that we know everyone that was here. Okay, cool. Well, that's all we have for you guys. So thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.